dead. It's just absolutely quiet. It sounded even more energetic, primarily in the mid-range. It's frenetic. It just keeps wanting to keep going if the recording has that. Hi everyone. So this is the long-awaited video series that I promised you. We're going to compare the top integrated amps that we sell in the store for under 20,000 Canadian or thereabouts, okay? So there are some caveats that I want to go through first. So before you internet warriors start clicking away on your keyboard and spam me and so on, which by the way is fine, I don't get offended. Let me just lay out some of the things that I thought about as part of this process. Number one, as longtime viewers know, we only generally review products that we carry. This is for a number of reasons. One is that, if we carry it, we have more intimate familiarity with it, as opposed to talking nonsense about products that we have no idea about or very little idea about. We want to talk about products that we know. The second thing is that we buy everything that you see on display, everything that we talk about. And so we've actually paid money for it. And as a result of that, I feel like I can say whatever I want, good and bad. Hopefully in that way, it's slightly less biased than just basically reviewing products that we get. I'm not saying that's a bad thing that other reviewers do. I'm just strictly saying that for our purposes, that's what we do. And because we own the products, yes, ultimately there is a sense of bias because a person would naturally not necessarily want to talk bad about stuff that they sell because it might hurt sales. But long time ago, I came to the understanding that all of us have different needs, wants, and tastes. And so what I may not find preferable, you may absolutely love. And I've definitely seen that happen quite a lot. So, and that's okay. So just because I don't like it or I love it doesn't mean that you'll find the same. Number three, for those of you who do in fact think that I cannot be as objective as possible, please watch some of the Good, Bad, and Ugly series that we've done. I want to highlight in particular, I think one of the last ones we did on D'Agostino. I didn't get any pushback from the factory. So for those of you who worried that I might lose the line, I wasn't worried about that. They are wonderful grown-ups. That's not going to happen. But I certainly did lay out a lot of bad and a couple of uglies, I think. So rest assured, I will do my best to be as objective as possible. Number four, we can't possibly carry every possible great brand that's out there. Just not possible. We don't have that big a market, and I don't have that much money. So we will only talk about the products that we currently have, although I believe that's a good proportion of what many of you will be considering if you're thinking about integrated amps in the 20,000 Canadian range, 14,000, 15,000 US, I would assume. So yes, I will not talk about Luxman. I know it's one of the hot ones. We just don't carry it. There are lots of other YouTube videos that you can watch who have done that comparison. Okay, so the first video I'm going to cover would be the Accuphase E-5000 versus the Hegel 600. Either Allison or Mike will link the videos below. We've done individual videos on each of those. So if you want more in-depth coverage, watch those videos. The system that I use is the Lumen P1 as a streamer. USB out into the MSB discrete DAC with the full-size Premier power supply. The USB goes into MSB's proprietary USB to Faber connection. And then the Wilson Sasha V's, which I don't know if you can see, but anyway, that's the system. We're using Cobas. I later on also included music files, which, if I remember, I'll get to as well. I volume matched everything just to make sure that there were no inconsistencies due to that. And I warmed up the system, each of them, for over an hour. So they should be fully ready to go when I started listening. Okay, so first cut, I go to my standard standby, which is the Cowboy Junkies Trinity Sessions Mining for Gold. Now, the reason that I use this cut is very simple. It is a very simple recording, microphone in front of a voice in a large church. I always start with something very simple, because if the recording is very dense, very full, if you will, then you may not necessarily be able to pick out issues that easily. Whereas if you start with something very simple, like walking, then you can see whether or not that person can actually walk properly. So that's the idea. Always start with something very simple. So this recording is very simple. It was recorded in the mid '80s at the Trinity Church downtown by Cowboy Junkies. The microphone is a Calrec Soundfield microphone, recorded to a Betamax machine and then converted to digital. So in the recording, you will hear church noise, not hum, but like this deep bass note rumble. I suspect that's either the church itself or the Betamax machine. And you should be able to hear all of that. You'll also hear a lot of the ambience in the church. And then because the mic is very close to her, you'll hear her articulation really, really well. On some systems where the high frequencies are perhaps pronounced, you will hear sibilants. And so these are the kinds of things that I listen for. All right, starting with the Hegel. The moment that the pots are turned on, you instantly hear how dark, how black the background is. Again, in the video of the Hegel, I talked about this. If you've never experienced this, I don't know how to describe it for you. Imagine a blackboard, just totally black, and then suddenly sounds come out of nowhere, and it's almost as if you're on the stage and the stage is completely dark, and then there are spotlights just on the performance alone, and then everything in between is dark. That's the kind of sound that you hear, and some of the other YouTubers would have also commented on that. It's an incredible sensation to hear this for the first time, and all the Hegels do this superbly well. Soundstage is very nice, big, deep, enveloping, because again, the microphone is in the church and you can hear this bouncing all around you. That deep bass note I was telling you about, continuous, it's there, it's strong, very clear. And then Margot Timmons, the singer, is slightly behind the speakers. So it's slightly laid back as far as presentation is concerned. So then I switched over to the Accuphase, and the first thought I have was, wow, that presentation is completely different. You don't get the same kind of black background. You miss it for like a few seconds, and then suddenly you realize you're not thinking about it anymore, because the soundstage is full, it's dense. It's as if everybody the light guy turned on all the lights, and suddenly you see everything. Which is better? I don't know. I'm just describing what I hear. A superb micro and macro dynamics, similar to the Hegel. But what's interesting is that you hear her inflections better. You hear how she nuances the way that she holds her pitch, goes up a note and then comes back down again. The wavering, her vibrato. You hear it better. The other thing that I noticed is that, so this song is basically about coal miners and the sickness that they get. With the Hegel, you hear the lyric really clearly, very well. It conveys the message very, very well. With the Accuphase, I feel the message. I don't just hear the message, I feel it. It's quite an interesting distinction. All right, so that's the first cut I tried. I've tried a lot of cuts, and I'm just going to name a few. The second one, I thought, okay, I got to wake up. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's play some crazy music, and I played Electrified by Boris Blank. It's on my playlist, and by the way, for those of you who would like to get a copy of my playlist, all you have to do is donate at least $10, hopefully you'll donate more, to your favorite charity, not to mine, just whatever charity you feel compelled to donate to. Take a picture of the receipt, email it to me, info@audioexcellence.ca, and I'll send you a link to my playlist. It's very, very long, and it's a combination of some great recordings, some great music, and not necessarily great recording necessarily, but music that I like. But in it, you will find gems, I hope. Okay, so with the Hegel, absolutely superb. It wakes you up like crazy. The bass goes deep and powerful and fun and energetic and controlled. I mean, when you think Hegel, you think bass. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's just it's like modern day Krell. So back in the day, when you thought Krell, you thought bass. It was like ham fist with control. It's unbelievable. Hegel sort of does the same thing, but with even darker backgrounds, even quieter noise level. If you put your ear right beside the speakers, you will not hear any noise. It's just dead. It's just absolutely quiet. This, by the way, is a great cut for demonstration. If your friends come over and you don't know what to play for them to demonstrate how good your system is, play this. Watch the levels because they can get pretty loud. But if you crank it up to a certain level where you can have some fun, this thing will you can just have great fun with it. But what's interesting is when I switched over to the Accuphase, it sounded even more energetic, primarily in the mid-range. The mid-range was even more frenetic, if that's the right word. And perhaps, again, it's primarily that the mid-range seems to fill in the soundstage better. Not better, but differently. Deep bass, however, is not quite as powerful and not quite as articulate and not quite as controlled as the Hegel. So this is one recording where for me, the Hegel did better. So far it's 1-1. I'm not going to keep score because I went through a lot of cuts, but just to give you an idea, there are pros and cons to both presentations. Then the third one that I'm going to highlight is Mary Gauthier, I think you pronounce her name, and the song is called I Drink. This is a very interesting cut. I was first introduced to this about 10, 15 years ago. Peter McGrath came to visit, and he played me this song, and I remember being completely entranced by the lyrics, and I didn't know what it was all about. I just knew that it was very deep. And then subsequently, years later, I looked into it when I was playing it again, thinking, what's it all about? And then I found out that it's actually semi-autobiographical. Ms. Gauthier talks about this father who comes home at 5:30, immediately fixes himself a drink, picks a fight with his wife, and sits in his chair. And then at night he smokes, and Mary sees him and sees his frown through the smoke as he's smoking. He's using his lighter to spark up his cigarette, and he sees her frown. And then years later, she looks into the mirror and she sees the same frown, and she concludes that she's got her father's blood in her veins. Now, why is this interesting? Turns out that Ms. Gauthier has been an addict ever since she could remember, of both drugs and alcohol. At the age of 15, she went to her first rehab. 15. My God, that's insane. She talks about how she doesn't ever recall just drinking socially. In other words, it's full on. The moment she starts, it's full on, get completely wasted. And she was in and out of rehabs and jails and so on until the age of 27. So for all those years, she lived a hard life. And so this song is about her experiences. Now, why is this interesting to me is besides the fact that I love biographies, or autobiographies more particularly, I'm a father of 3 girls. And when I heard this song, I thought about the influence or lack of influence that I have as a father, not spending as much time as I would love to with them, and not having as much influence as I should have when they were growing up. Thankfully, the wife was home, so she did a great job, but as a father, I didn't spend as much time, and that's one of my big regrets. And what's interesting also is that even when they are home and you're home, the things that you do, the actions that you take, they are subconsciously learning from. And so when I listen to this song, there's a deep meaning for me. With the Hegel, I hear the incredible orchestration, the slide guitar, the bass drum, the guitars, her voice. She sings with such a matter of fact perspective, even though it's semi-autobiographical. There's no old-style country of wailing, nothing like that. She just sings, this is my life, matter of fact. And the Hegel portrays that so effortlessly, so clearly. You can clearly hear how everything is done The bass drum, when it kicks, it's 5, 6, 7 feet behind her. It's just so well done. Switched over to the Accuphase, and suddenly the stage expands. It gets even deeper. And now, more interestingly, her voice takes on a deeper richness, conveying the meaning to me of the song in a way that the Hegel sort of just says, this is what she says. Whereas the Accuphase says, listen to me, I have a message for you. And that's a subtle difference that, again, I can't measure it. I don't know how to show that to you. You just have to hear it for yourself. And that may or may not be something you're interested in. But I started discovering that with music that was deeper than just music, just notes, I found that the Accuphase was able to translate that better to me than the Hegel did. The other thing that I also noticed on a consistent level now is that regardless of the recording, the Accuphase always threw a big soundstage and a deep soundstage, which is wonderful, but not accurate. Whereas with the Hegel, the soundstage would change depending on the recording, which now I'll get to in the next cut. Buddy Holly, True Love Waits. Again, I've talked about this album this cut many times. So Buddy Holly wrote this song and recorded it about 2-3 months before he died. And the song was basically inspired by he and his wife, his newly married wife of a couple of months. They were dining at a restaurant, and he suddenly noticed that her ring was too big for her finger. And so he promised her, when I have more money, I will buy you a ring that fits you better, and I'll also write you a song. So he wrote the song. As I say, a couple of months later, he passed away at the age of 22. He never knew how much of a classic this song would become. With the Hegel, you can clearly hear that the instrumentation is clustered around the speakers, and then Buddy Holly's voice is right in the center, slightly behind the speakers. You hear everything very clear. All the orchestration, how well it's done. You can hear the harp. Just so well done. With the Accuphase, the meaning of the music comes through. Buddy Holly is singing about their love. When you have a special love between two people, you don't need to explain it to anybody else. You can't. It's just something very beautiful shared between two people. It's very deep, and that you have to work also to keep it that special. So this song has very deep meaning, even though it's a very beautiful, simple simple melody, something that I treasure as a song. And the fact that it's so well done is just a bonus. And what's fascinating, again, as I say, Buddy Holly did all this at the age of basically 22. So very sad, but a beautiful recording nonetheless. The Accuphase transcends just reproducing the sound. It seems to be able to convey the meaning better to me than the Hegel. Conversely, every time I would play R&B, faster paced music, something that was just more fun to listen to, the Hegel would do better. So it's a toss-up. One of the last albums I'll talk about is Joshua Bell, La Lisière d'Amour. Forgive my pronunciation. So Joshua Bell plays a 1713 Stradivarius called the Gibson. And this is a beautiful melody. With the Hegel, it shines so obviously. Again, you hear the horns. The instrumentation is so well done. You can also clearly hear that this particular recording is slightly dark. It doesn't have quite the same kind of airiness as some other orchestral music has. The violin is, you can hear there are certain parts of his performance where when he scrapes the bow against the string, it is in clear evidence. It's like, wow. As an audiophile, that part of me goes, that is unbelievable. That is so stunning. With the Accuphase, with the very first F note that Joshua Bell plays, I fall in love. It's that melody just rises into your heart, and that's it. Game over. For me, that is what I listen for, what I look for when I'm looking for a system for myself. And again, it may not be what you like. It may not. You may prefer something more precise, more accurate, so that the soundstage varies from recording to recording. You may prefer a more articulate bass, a deeper bass, more control. But as I say, my bias is more towards the Accuphase in this case. So, conclusion. I know many people think that the Accuphase is a sweeter, more forgiving sound in comparison to a lot of other integrated amps and so on. I didn't find that necessarily. I certainly don't find it forgiving. If the recording is bad, you're going to hear it. It doesn't hide that fact. In fact, in some ways, the Accuphase is reminiscent of the first Nissan GTR, which I had the pleasure of driving. It scared the hell out of me. For those of you who know cars, this was the car back in the early 90s that was making, you had videotapes that people would import from Japan showing this crazy monster, this little V6 that was like the little engine that could. Nobody believed that this big, huge, heavy car with a little V6 could outdo the finest cars of the same time, you know, like the Porsches and so on. It would just annihilate them. Nobody would believe it. So in some ways, the Accuphase is the same way. It's frenetic. It just want to keep going if the recording has that. And yet at the same time, it's refined. It has that ability to convey music and the intent of the music that is quite rare. Mid-range is very dense, as I said. When you hear acoustic instruments, you immediately recognize them for what they are, very clearly, tonally very honest. As I said, soundstage is big and deep, almost always that case. Not neutral, but it's a side effect that the audiophile in me likes. The Hegel, on the other hand, is the technical superior. It is accurate, it is neutral, the bass is as good as it gets, especially for this kind of a range. It has features that all of us would want for that kind of money. I mean, it's got a streamer built in, it's got balance inputs, it's got RCA inputs, it's got everything. Remote control that works. You know, the one thing that's missing is a headphone jack. It's even cheaper. It's got a great DAC built in. It's $15,000 compared to the Accuphase's $20,000. So it's $5,000 less, and yet it offers all these other features. Sonically, very precise. But I still find that the mid-range is not quite as tonally, harmonically as beautiful as I prefer it to be. And so ultimately, and one more thing I should say, it's not like the Hegel is cold or sterile. It's nothing like that at all. It's just not quite as full-bodied and rich as I prefer it. If you want more clarity, just watch the Hegel video that we did. So anyway, that's my conclusion for what it's worth. I would love to read your comments and so on. Just put them in the comments box below. If you've heard it or if you've compared the two, please let me know what you guys think, as usual. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.